We got a lot of information on all things related to 12.12 and beyond from the podcast that Pestily had with Noise Guy and Axel TV. Let's do it. Newsy news. Hey everybody, my name is Onepeg, and this is another video about Escape from Tarkov. Today is November 6th, 2021, the day after a podcast that Nikita was joined with Pestily, Axel TV, and Noise Guy. The podcast kicked off with Pestily asking about future plans for 12.12 and whether or not there was going to be a wipe. Nikita said, I don't know. We don't feel good or bad about whether or not there should be a wipe, but we're feeling pressure to put out content for the end of the year goals that we have based on the timing. I still think there's going to be a wipe personally. It makes sense for timing, for marketing. It would likely make transitions for new maps and mechanics easier for the dev team. We then moved on to a discussion about dailies, and the panel agreed that dailies and weeklies are a positive thing along with the rep change. Nikita said that more dynamic quests are coming in the next iteration of dailies and weeklies. Monthly quests are coming, but they want it to be a little bit more unique in that they're going to be a globally pooled quest that will have a goal and rewards for like a faction-based thing over the course of a month. Nikita also said that with the weapon jam system and whatnot for 12.12, they are going to be introducing overheating. However, he said that they've already reduced the chances for weapon malfunctions to something like 1 out of 100,000 rounds on average across the entirety of the game. What was once 5% is now apparently 10% of the durability, so anything for a gun above 90 durability should never misfire. There is still the chance of, after 12.12, overheating causing the gun to have a major malfunction, so obviously you're going to have to watch the gun's heat. Right now, on the ETS servers, he did divulge once again that they are testing VoIP, Inertia, and the Unity 2019 iteration on ETS right now. So if you do have ETS access, it might be a good idea to get in there and do some testing and help out. He said right now Lighthouse is being finalized in-house. Nikita said that the team has been taking days off. They're on holiday. However, the team that is working on polishing up Lighthouse has not been taking days off and is working in the office while others are taking holidays. Big props to those guys that are working hard. Speaking of Lighthouse, the first iteration of Lighthouse will not have the in-map trader. The Lighthouse map is 95% included in the very first iteration, with Lighthouse building itself being inaccessible. There will be an NPC trader inside of the Lighthouse that you will need a special pass in order to enter and speak to him, but for now, the building is guarded by sniper fire and you won't be able to approach it. This is new information because prior to now, Nikita said he wasn't going to tell us where the NPC trader was going to spawn on the map. However, now apparently the NPC trader is located in the Lighthouse. This is also the first that we are hearing of the NPC trader not being on the map in the first iteration, which originally we were teased and thought that it would be. 12.12 will have the Scar H and Scar L. Again, the overheating malfunction, the double-barreled shotgun is supposed to be included, the revolver shotgun is supposed to be included, the Unity 2019 migration, ballistic changes, the UMP suppressor, which was shown in the thumbnail for this video, and other things, but he's not telling because he wants there to be some surprises. Also, there is planned to be a train extraction on Lighthouse, the same as what we've seen in Reserve. Originally, the idea is that the train is going to be like an armored train, like what we saw in Reserve before, and originally it was planned that you would have to ride the train and defend it as you rode the train. Eventually, this will be implemented, and again, the plan is to have some of these maps be interconnected via these train rides. This ride-along mechanic will end up being the same as what we will see when riding in the BTR using the taxi feature on Streets of Tarkov as soon as that kind of stuff is implemented. My knee-jerk reaction on this is that it probably won't be implemented as something where you're going to do the ride-along until they get the BTR actually in on Streets and you're doing something with the BTR on Streets. On to Arena Mode. Arena Mode is supposed to include a spectator mode with a report function to report cheating and advanced other report features for things that need to be done for Arena Mode because of the fast-paced nature, and it's supposed to be a ranked spectator kind of thing. Again, there's going to be an after-raid replay feature. They want this in the main game, though, to be immersive, so there's going to be something like a helmet cam, and then the replay will be playable in the in-game hideout. Once the Arena Mode has been completed, this functionality will also be available in the main game because they have to build the functionality for Arena Mode in order to be able to have it everywhere. There was then a conversation about the prolonging of early wipe gameplay, and Nikita said he doesn't want to give away any ideas because he thinks that people will start theory crafting and pushing out ideas on how to meta the early game in advance of the release of these changes, but he is looking into how to prolong the early wipe. However, this then transitioned into a conversation about the early wipe as a feature or a time period in the game once it's released, and he said that they don't want to make the game with the intention of having an early game or an early wipe meta as a focus. They want to develop a game that will always have systems that will make sense for players coming into the early game for the first time that all end up working right regardless of when it is that they come into the game, because once again, when the game goes into full release, the main PMC, if you will, is never supposed to have a wipe. This led to then a conversation about this idea of the prestige system. Nikita said it's going to be in the game and it's needed. He said that they want the game to be playable again, regardless of where people are in that overall progression, depending on when they start versus, this super aged out player base. They are still planning on having separate seasonal PMCs, but this is something that Nikita wants to implement correctly, much like everything else the dev team envisions for the future. The main account will never wipe again and is intended to be permanently persistent. The accounts will not be connected at all, but perhaps with Arena, that's it. Now, Axel ended up suggesting game dev ideas and game direction if the devs are interested in a complete or most accurate level of feedback from the player base would be to do a poll of some kind in-game via a message from therapist or like a system message of some kind, and then the people responding would obviously be active players. I 100% agree with this idea. I think that would be a fantastic move for the dev team if they're able to build that in-game so that they could ask the important questions of the player base and get a realistic response. Because I agree, once again, like what Axel said, each one of the social media platforms has a slightly different attitude associated with it, and that's not even including individual communities and how people congregate around them. It goes without saying that if you were to ask Smitty Stone's community about how the game should be moving in a certain direction, they're going to have vastly different answers than Xville Camper or myself or Jesse or anyone else. Then there was a question as to whether or not the level 15 flea market was going to be permanent. Nikita said yes. Noise Guy actually brought up an interesting point. Between that and like weekly and daily tasks, it's very likely that when you get to level 15 and you have access to the flea market, Gunsmith becomes pretty quick for the first 4 or 5 missions. You'd fly from level 15 to 18, 19 between those Gunsmith tasks and the XP rewards from something like a weekly mission. And he wanted to make sure that that was intended. Nikita didn't really have an answer for that one. He kind of just lost himself in thought a little bit, and it looked like he was making a note. So I guess we'll have to see if that ends up getting shifted a little bit. Nikita then was talking about the economy. He said that the economy is still an experiment, and he's looking into limiting it more. He's not sure exactly how he's going to limit it, but it will be limited a little bit more regarding the flea market. He's not taking the flea market away. Looks like, though, he might be looking into doing some kind of item restriction kind of stuff. There was then a question about whether or not there would be different types of PMC selections for skins, like skin color. Nikita said that there's only going to be different faces and facial hair. They don't currently have time for all of the different customization options, according to him, for what it is that they're trying to get implemented by the time that they get to release. Then there was a question about the unconscious state. He said that they're looking at the advanced animation team. They have other priorities right now, and they're going to be working on the unconscious state at some point in the future, but no word as to when. Dismemberment being an idea, he said that that was possible, but they have more important things to work on for now. And then there was a question about NPC factions. Nikita said that right now the team that's responsible for bosses and AI are currently working on the Lighthouse bosses. And apparently there's going to be 4 of them. 4 Lighthouse bosses. And then they are slated to work on the Streets bosses. Somewhere in between, they're supposed to be working on faction AI. For those of you that are unaware, things like Untar are all supposed to have their own military arm and NPC AI that is supposedly going to show up on maps at random intervals, depending on where they are and what your rep with them is, which then goes into PMC rep and whatnot. And Nikita didn't really give some information on that one, so we'll have to see what that looks like moving forward. I just know that neither one of these things right now is a super high priority. In regard to PMC skills, for those of you unaware, there are built-in skills for USEC and Bear. Like Bear, for instance, has an affinity for AK rifles, but these are more like advanced skills that aren't implemented in the game yet, along with a vast variety of other ones. These built-in PMC skills that are inherent for Bear and USEC, along with some of the others, are not considered a priority item either. There are some base-level skills that Nikita still wants to get in the game that are going to end up playing into these other ones, and then they obviously have to be rebalanced and whatnot, so more testing has to be done, just like a lot of other systems in this game that are super complex. Nikita, again, didn't give a timeline for these. Then there was a question about Steam Audio's next iteration. Nikita said, once again, that the CPU demand for this next module is pretty high. They need the next version of Unity in order to make it work a little bit better. And the person responsible for the next Steam Audio iteration was redirected to a different task. No date on what that next module is going to be or what it's going to look like. I would assume maybe late 2022. We're probably looking a ways out for this. Then there was a question from Axel about whether or not someone would be able to get a streamer item or how you would go about getting a streamer item. Nikita said that he had tossed around an idea of having a tournament where one of the prizes or the main prize was a streamer item in-game for the winner of the tournament, but it got kind of pushed to the wayside. He's trying to resurrect that now, so in the next year, I would expect that we're going to see a tournament where that ends up being like one of the main prizes. And then there were a couple of like rapid fire suggestions that got made by Pestily and some other folks in the community, where he said that server lists having high, medium, and low population on the selector and the launcher might not necessarily be a bad idea. And Nikita took a note for that and thought that maybe it was time to have something like that added. And then there was also the question of whether or not combining meds and med kits would be in the game at some point in the future. Nikita said that that's something that is planned, but again, no ETA. The main takeaways from this look like 12.12 is like full steam ahead. They're trying to get this thing out probably by the end of this month or next month. I'm going to go again with a Christmas release for the New Year event where they will also have a wipe somewhere around the Christmas time when they do this release that will include all of the 12.12 stuff, barrel overheating, Scar H, Scar L, the revolver shotgun, double barrel shotgun, the Unity 2019 implementation, VoIP, inertia, all of those things that we're looking at seeing, along with an ump suppressor. But lots of content that's going to be added. Hopefully, all of the ultra hardcores like myself don't end up burning through it in like 2 days and get bored. I don't think that we will, though. I'm really digging like the way that everything's going in this direction. So yeah, looking forward to it. Anyway, guys, that's what I got for this one. Thanks so much for coming by, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.